Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
Thank you for joining us here today. Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts.
This case is an abomination. It's obviously political. 7 years to try to come up with this case. They're just wrong on the law.
The only crime that Donald Trump is being prosecuted for is the crime of running for president.
Political persecution at the highest level.
They've quite frankly given up on trying to beat him at the polls. Either going to steal it or stop it by lawfare.
A Democrat prosecutor elected on a Get Trump platform.
What's going on here is a disgusting disgrace. It is war on Trump. It is war on the Republican Party. And it is a war on the Republic.
This case is the weakest case I've seen in 60 years of teaching, practicing, and writing about criminal law.
And I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump.
This judge, you don't need a prosecutor if you have a judge like this. This judge is not on the level.
It's a terrible case, but the judge has been pretty much a rubber stamp on everything that Bragg has wanted to do.
They're perverting the system of justice. That's where the danger lies. The corruption and subversion of our institutions by the left.
This is the Democrats' entire strategy, to confine President Trump to a dirty criminal courtroom and keep him off the campaign trail where he can bring his winning message to voters across this country.
New York has become a legal banana republic. They are so determined to get Donald Trump.
Look, convicting Donald Trump, that's all they have.
I think they have no cards. And they're depending upon Trump getting convicted.
That Trump train doesn't show any signs of slowing down.
The only verdict that matters is the verdict at the ballot box.
Eric Hunley, I don't know who that son of a bitch thinks he is.
Yeah, we'll have to record that one again. I thought that, that really is, I think, people's answer to the verdict.
Yeah.
That's a Trump ad. I think it's an appropriate ad. I agree with a lot of the messages that are in there. And I just thought this is the best way I could think of to open the show, where we are responding directly to a historic event, or whatever you want to call it. I even have a new background just for today. As Alan Dershowitz said, we're at 8 out of 10 bananas in our new republic. So we have a new background just for today. I don't know. I'm exhausted and tired and frustrated by it. So I'm going to go with Steve. How about you talk about what's going on and fill us in and give us your thoughts, because you're going to be quiet the whole damn time unless I get you talking.
Yeah, we should ask you. Every question goes to Steve first. That's the way we're doing this. Every question goes to him first.
Well, you've got superb lawyers on here. 2 out of 3 is not bad. And so let me ask them a question. So you're going down the street, you get pulled over, and the cop says, look, I'm going to have to cite you. It's a misdemeanor. And you say, okay, that's fine. I understand. Let me figure out what I did wrong here or whatever. And he says, well, here's the problem. Your registration was expired, but you were doing something else on the road that's going to convert this into a felony, actually. So I'm going to have to take you downtown for that. And then you say, what, really? I just had my registration out and now all of a sudden I'm going to jail. It's a felony. Well, can you tell me what I did? Well, it could be a lot of things that you might have done that can make this a felony. I really don't have to tell you. And then you go to trial and the judge tells the jury, look, if you find that Steve had his registration out and you think he did something else that's or any other unlawful act on the road while he had his registration out, then you must under the law find him guilty of a felony. Meanwhile, I'm saying, but what is the thing though? What's the specific thing? I don't understand this concept that you take a misdemeanor or the wrong books or whatever, convert it to a felony, but you don't have to specify a felony. How's that not an element of the crime? Because basic criminal law is you have to prove each element of a crime beyond a reasonable doubt. And if something elevates to a felony, I mean, I haven't read these laws, I have to admit, but why is that not an element of the crime that has to be specifically proven beyond a reasonable doubt to make it this level of a crime. Otherwise, it's a misdemeanor, and the statute of limitations would run. So, has anybody heard anyone say something that actually explains that, other than they don't have to? They don't have to care. They, as long as they just feel like some of them thought he did this and some of them thought he did that other thing. As long as there's a feeling in the air that, yeah, he must have done something, then it's a felony.
I have. It's a novel legal take. Same thing with Atlanta. It's a novel legal take. So, like a novel, what they usually are, they're called fiction. So that's my answer as a non-lawyer.
Well, and Steve, I mean, I'm going to say obviously, but I guess it's not that obvious. It's an error of law. I mean, it's the jury instructions were inappropriate and subject to a reversal of whatever conviction happens and the sentence that happens. So there's no question about that. The problem, of course, is that we're almost past errors of law. There's tons of stuff. Lots of evidence was admitted that should have been admitted. We're at the stage now where
excluded that shouldn't have been excluded.
It should be excluded. Exactly, Joe. But we're at the stage now where the president's movement may be inhibited before the election, and we don't have any ability to get any remedy soon. I mean, it's going to be 6 to 9 months before that's hashed out. So I think a lot of people question it. I mean, obviously, we question the conduct. Any conduct that President Trump had in this situation was vicarious, right? I mean, did he write legal fees in the ledger? No, he didn't do that. He also, they adduced evidence that he didn't even know it was happening. So besides the predicate, there's lots of examples of predicate felonies that occur especially in federal law. I was thinking about the Matthew Shepard hate crimes law. You got to prove an actual traditional, I hate to use the word, but they say it in the statute, traditional crime like assault, battery, plus a bias. So there's lots of different things, but again, like you said, you have to prove the predicate as well as the bias. And this is a situation where the judge did not require the prosecution to deduce evidence of the predicate traditional crime.
I can try to steelman the argument that Merchan and that we should anticipate the district attorney is going to argue in opposition to the appeal. So we can better understand it. Because a lot of people think that there's two crimes. It's actually 3. If you look at one of the sickest things about this is we didn't even know until we got to jury instructions exactly what the crime was that made it a felony.
Oh, the ones that they couldn't take back with them?
So, well, what they did was, if you go through the jury instructions, and I went through them line by line on air, the easiest way to understand what they're saying is this. There's some unlawful activity, which is crime A, and there's another crime in New York which says that it's a crime. You're not allowed to do unlawful activity for the purposes of winning an election. So that's and that is the predicate crime to you cannot falsify business records for the purposes of concealing or committing a crime. So those are there's 3 crimes here, or 5, depending on how you look at it. You have this first. The question is, what's the unlawful activity, which is some crime. Then you have the stand-in, the anchor that the Judge Merchan is standing behind, and the ADA certainly wants the appellate court to agree with, which is you cannot commit a crime to win an election. And then you're falsifying business records for the purposes of committing a crime. That is the crime of unlawfully winning an election. But we have to come back to what this first crime is here. As far as, well, what was the unlawful activity to win an election? That's where Judge Merchan gave 3 different suggestions. One of them was if Michael Cohen submitted falsified bank records to a bank in order to secure a loan to get this thing, that submitting those false records is a crime, which now is unlawful activity to win an election, and then it's being falsified afterwards when he submits the records to Trump for getting payment. Or it could be literally that there's overpayment of taxes. And overpayment, meaning giving too much money in taxes, paying too much taxes, and reporting that to the IRS is technically a crime. It's a crime that I would argue no American in history has ever been charged with, much less convicted of, but that's a technical crime. And the reason they're committing this technical crime is to help steal an election, and then it's being falsified and whatever. That's how the DA. For purposes, we are a law panel, so I want everyone to understand what they're saying. But what's so aggravating, Jonathan Turley pointed out, and Ian just alluded to, and as it's Southern law, it's like this first crime, he gave him 3 choices. And he said, you don't all have to agree about what that first crime is. And they would say, well, you don't have to agree to it because we just have to anchor this middle crime of unlawful activity for the purposes of a crime. And in theory, at first I was like, I can sort of understand that. I don't agree with it. It feels gross. But I had a caller who called in my show yesterday. It's like, no, anytime you have a crime, you have to have intent as an element to the crime. How can you establish that he had intent to commit a crime when you can't establish what his intent was with respect to that first crime? Was it an intent on the taxes, intent on Cohen's thing? Where do you have the intent there in order to label it an unlawful activity? And I think that's correct. And that's why I think Jonathan Turley is correct. And that's why I think Steve and Ian are correct. That no matter how you try and slice and dice this to come up with some sort of, turn yourself into a pretzel, at the end of the day, it's gross and unsettling, the idea that there is no unanimity, and the judge specifically says you don't have to be unanimous in order to find, even if you're not unanimous, you must convict him. That is such a gross error of law, and I don't think they care about that. They just want to be able to label him going for the next 6 months. We just want to be able to call him a felon, and then when it gets sorted out later on, well, it's too late. No one's going to care.
They'll still call him that. They'll still call him that. There's a conviction.
But through November 5th, we want to be able to label him as being a felon, and that's really all we care about. And if the court overturns it after that, who cares? Who cares? It had the effect that we wanted. The same way the Biden laptop, they wanted it suppressed through the election. It's like this is so blatantly partisan politics in a way that is gross and disgusting and shows complete disregard for basic civil liberties of Donald Trump. And the civil liberties, frankly, of all Americans who actually care about having a just and fair system and fair political process.
I just saw this chat. What do you guys think? I think that the jury's just fine with their decision. I think they could watch this all day long and they'll probably be like, yep, we got him. I mean, we're talking about an area that went for Biden 95 to 5, I believe. I somehow don't think maybe the True Social guy will feel bad about it, but everybody else, unlikely. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Well, given the instructions they were given, what did they have to look at? Plus, it's highly likely, as you say, that they were people primed to take him out in the first place.
Well, on the Truth Social guy that you referenced, okay, I went through the list of jurors. The New York Post had a breakdown as to based on how they answered their voir dire, as to where these different people are. And the True Social guy, to me, felt like a plant because he says he gets his news from True Social, from New York Times, True Social, and MSNBC. There's nobody in America who gets their news from True Social and MSNBC. No one does that. I mean, maybe me, I'm a podcaster, so I want to get like a clip from here, a clip from there, from opposing thing. And that's not like my source of news. It's like, yeah, this is my source of news. So I sort of feel like he was desperately trying to get onto that jury.
Or he could be.
I may be appealing to both. Oh, Trump be happy with the True Social part, and I won't get knocked out by the DA because I'll mention MSNBC.
You know what though? It could also be this. I thank you for reminding me. I used to work with a guy, and we were sharing a shop, and he would listen to Rush Limbaugh all day and scream at the radio.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, so it could be somebody who follows people on True Social. Like maybe it's a troll. Somebody's like, yeah, I get all my news on True Social. Well, I'm trolling everybody. Or, like this guy who just hate watched Rush Limbaugh or hate listened.
So one of the aspects about this is, covered up by all this was the Supreme Court decision in favor of the NRA, 9-0, the NRA. Okay. And you look at another recent unanimous decision, the attempt to take Trump off the ballot. And when these things are making it to the Supreme Court like that and getting blown out of the water 9-0, the media doesn't like to talk about it, or they like to criticize even their own side, the progressive side on the court, for not breaking off here. But
or they redefine it, Steve. The other thing they do is they say, well, no. They wrote 2 responses, so it actually was a split decision.
Yeah, it's a good occurrence. But so here's the thing, though. How awful is this local lawfare at these different levels that when it gets to the Supreme Court, it's actually batted down 9-0. When you look at the kind of cases the Supreme Court will split on, how terrible must be the level intellectual fidelity to the law of what they're doing at these lower levels for the Supreme Court to blow it out of the water like that. It indicates to me that a lot of the stuff is, as you look at it, obviously nonsense, but it takes a long time to get corrected. I mean, these are 9-0 decisions on these things are with a concurrence, which is fine. Still, there's no dissent, right? So blowing out of the water these stupid things like you can take this guy off the ballot, traffic court judge anywhere can remove somebody off a ballot, the NRA threatening them and stuff like that. So this kind of stuff can get reined in over time. But of course, they hate the Supreme Court now too, and they want to change that. But it's an indicator to me of how terrible these arguments are.
I just wanted to. I saw some clip from Bill O'Reilly today, and he was trying to take the tact about what should President Biden do in this situation. And he was talking with Chris Cuomo, and Chris Cuomo was saying, listen, President Biden's base would not like if President Biden came out and started talking about this verdict. And then they started discussing a possible pardon. And, basically Chris Cuomo was saying that would never fly in the Democratic Party. And Bill O'Reilly was like coming out basically saying, forget about if you like Trump or if you like Biden or don't like either of them. The president has got to do what's best for the country. And
but it's a state crime.
And what's happening right now is the further polarization of the citizenry. Bill O'Reilly alluded to the Civil War. Not since the Civil War have we been as divided. I don't know if that's hyperbole or not, but I really see the ultimate purpose. I think a lot of times these commentators are focused on bases and, voters and all these things. But sometimes the president has to emerge from all that and say, listen, I don't care what's going on. I hate Trump. If he has all this orange makeup, I hate that, whatever the situation is. But what I got to do is consider the pardon. And then if he would do that, the next question, the legal question is, could he pardon Donald Trump in this situation? And the answer, I think, uniformly is no, because of the fact that it's a state conviction.
Hochul can.
But
that's not going to happen.
The Kathy Hochul and see if she would do that.
Yeah.
But I just want to bring that up because I do think that would be huge. I think that would be if you're trying to get Biden reelected, frankly, I think that would be an olive branch to the citizenry saying, listen, we've got to stop this right away.
How'd it work out for Ford?
Yeah, well, he was not voted as president for sure.
But I'm just saying, it's something to consider. But
well, I don't know. I just don't think it's good for Americans to be so divided to the point where we hate each other, so to speak.
I sort of feel almost as if they push and push and push as far as they can until they get a reaction. And then once the reaction comes, they're like, aha, you see that we told you that they're dangerous. And I strongly urge everyone to protest, and scream your heads off, and to basically call out anyone who stands for this as if they're a danger to our republic. If you're trying to defend this conviction as being moral and just, you are a danger to this. These people need to be otherized. But I want to stress over and over and over again, do not become violent. If you become violent, the choices are that either your own mortality or imprisonment. And the upshot of is you're just justifying the empty rhetoric about how, MAGA is uniquely dangerous, all this other stuff. So I'm begging you to please be vocal and adamant that this cannot stand, and we will not allow it to stand. And we're going to keep marching and screaming about this until this is remedied. But do not engage in violence, because it's self-defeating to yourself, self-destructive to yourself personally, and self-defeating to any ambition to actually remedy this type of injustice.
Manchin made a move today on it. Did you see that?
Yeah,
I did.
Manchin, left the Democratic Party and became independent. Now, we all know that he was borderline caucusing with the Republicans, sure, but that is a statement to, be certain. And, and so the people,
the timing is very much a statement.
And on Joe's point, you have to understand, a lot of people who are for this, they see what they've been told, which is fine, that Trump was charged with a crime that actually exists, and that they don't have to prove what this specific other crime was. The jury can, as long as the jury decides that it was there and it was the intent to cover it up or whatever, and therefore he's rightfully convicted. I mean, there are a lot of people who hear that logic, and there's a judge behind it, there's a jury behind it, there's a process to contend against it. So I don't even know how, because there are a lot of people who think he's guilty of so many things. If they could just get him on something, that's karma, that's fair. And when the shoe's on the other foot, people think the other thing, the Clintons are so dirty. They killed everybody. They had this foundation that was terrible. So if you can get them on a classified document thing, lock them up. So there's not going to be a lot of deep thinking about elements of law and stuff like that for most people. It's not what they do for a living. So, there's no even need to hate people just because they hate Trump. So I take that to put on to what Joe said about control your own reactions to make them productive.
Well, Michael, thanks for joining in. I mean, do you have any thoughts? I think Norm is a little bit different than the folks here, judging from what I saw yesterday. I don't know where you stand, but I mean, I'm always open, personally, and this show's all about different opinions. You may agree, you may not. I don't know.
What are we talking about?
This thing happened yesterday.
Yeah, give me some prep, right?
Al Capone.
I've Norm and I talked about it this morning, and I thought it was a really productive dialogue. And hey, Janet, I see you over in chat. Yeah, my thoughts scatter on this. I think from a 30,000 foot view, it's pretty clear to me that the cumulative effort to prosecute and to bring suits against Trump are designed for a very specific outcome. I think it indicates a clear lack of pluralism in the country and a lack of good faith as it relates to the administration of our Constitution, which is ultimately all that document pivots on, is collective good faith of the individuals governed by the United States government and state governments. And with that recognition of a complete lack of good faith and what some would argue is a weaponization of the institutions against arguably the most popular federal executive to ever run, again, for his second term, there's, issues abound. I think for me, I'm heartened listening to Norm, because it sounds like, and I talked to him after the stream this morning. He takes these things on the merits at face value. And as attorneys, I think that we should endeavor to do more of that than more contextually driven dialogue and conversation. I think if attorneys don't get into the arena and do what we are licensed to do, and show deference to the court and to the institutions, that the institutions themselves will crumble. And there's no uncertainty about that. Having said that, it does mean that the cultural war that we are in the midst of right now, this constitutional crisis, as it were, it desperately needs some diversity of thought to make its way into the institutions that seem largely right now dominated by those on the political and ideological left. And to that end, it becomes a really difficult conversation for those of us who are licensed to practice and actually do something about it, to have conversations where non-practitioners or civilians really want to hear us indulge those sensibilities of corruption and being stabbed in the back. So I think, what I think is that ultimately this is going to galvanize the base even harder for Trump, even though, 6 months ago, I didn't even think that was a phenomenon that I would ever utter, right? 6 months ago, it didn't seem as though Trump's base could be any more hard or dense than it was. But I have, and I see all the bananas on the background too. But I will say that, one thing that I've noticed in the last couple of years, and I think I've tweeted the same a couple of times, that rap culture is now the political domain of the conservative right? And it does appear as though Trump has ingratiated himself, through this fire to a demographic culturally that historically has not been within the reaches of a Republican candidate for president. So I think that is, and that's not, insignificant or trivial in the larger cultural context.
I want to sort of pick up on what he was saying as far as attorneys doing what we can do in order to fight this stuff. Most of you are aware of the fact that I have sued Judge Merchan to try and ungag Trump on the basis that this unconstitutional gag, which is still in effect today. Today, the gag on Trump is still in effect. In fact, it affected his ability to speak at the press conference. He spoke fairly obviously about Michael Cohen without actually using his name, but that's because of the gag order. I wanted to update you all. So if you want to learn more about that, I mean, I have a givesendgo.com/ungag Trump. Yesterday, I got a decision from the first department rejecting my petition. There was a lot of greatness. There were a lot of good positives that come out of that rejection. First and foremost, I had concerns as to whether or not they would claim I have standing or just reject me and say, we're not listening to you because you don't have standing to bring these claims. They did not do that. They actually heard my arguments and rejected them, I think completely erroneously, but they basically conferred standing on me. So my standing issues potential standing issues no longer exist. They seem to recognize my standing. It means also, instead of making me dragging their feet any longer, it means now I have a dispositive decision, meaning which for you in the audience means it means a final decision, and you need to have finality at this court at this appellate level in order to appeal to the next level. We are going to go into the Court of Appeals. I'm not confident that they're going to grant that application there. If they do, it's a win for New York in fighting this completely grossly unconstitutional gag order. But what I'm really my real design is I want that is a DC Circuit Court decision in 2023 that was in the Washington DC action against Trump, that is now being used as the basis here in New York and will continue to be used not just against Trump but other individuals as well, to come up with this new basis to start gagging criminal defendants in ways that they've never been gagged before. And that's the case that I really want the Supreme Court to overturn. And I raise constitutional issues that Trump's own defense doesn't raise. Trump was really fixated on the fact that it's political speech and I'm a presidential candidate and I have special rights. That I feel was a weak way of attacking this. A much stronger way of attacking is I'm an American, and under Supreme Court precedent, Americans cannot be gagged in this type of situation. So I'm raising these issues which are on the legal battlefield are novel before the court, and I'm pressing forward, and I'm anticipating that I'm going to get denied by the Court of Appeals in New York, and then I'm making my application at that juncture to the Supreme Court of the United States, and that's why my attorneys are trying to raise money for their funding. And so if you want to contribute there, I'd be most obliged. But it is moving forward. The gag being in place, from my perspective, of trying to knock out that DC Circuit Court case is phenomenal, because it helps. I don't have to fight whether or not this is moot or this is capable of repetition, escaping review, and getting that way. So for my purposes and our objectives of actually trying to stop these crazy unconstitutional gag orders, the gag order being in effect is actually a positive thing. And we had some real positive developments in getting this positive decision and having that finality, and that I have standing. So we're moving forward. I just want to all update on
How about latches too? So basically you didn't have to deal with latches as well?
No, latches would be if I came too late. They didn't defend, they didn't oppose based on latches. They basically said we're standing behind what the DC Circuit Court case said. That's what they said in denying me. The DC Circuit Court case has already decided this. Plus, we decided this on Trump's application, and your claims are derivative thereof, which they're not, because they're very different claims. So, there were a lot of things they could have said which would have been terrible or made it much more difficult for me to move forward, and they really didn't even bother putting those in to try and slash me down. They just basically they shielded themselves behind that DC Circuit Court case and their prior decision against Trump. But their claims against Trump, their reasons for denying Trump, don't even apply to the arguments I made. It's almost like they didn't really parse through them. Where I was saying there's no causal link, there's no, you can't engage in a balancing test here, because that's exactly the opposite of what the precedents you're citing indicate is a feasible option for a court. But anyway, I don't want to derail and get hyper focused on that. I just wanted to give an update on that, and I want to urge my fellow attorneys that there's so many crazy things happening, and it's too much for any one person to try and fight these things. You guys, you fellow members of the bar, not simply in New York, but in DC, across the country, frankly, you could probably bring a lot of this stuff in other jurisdictions that is not being brought in. But if you're in Georgia, there's so many different ways that our Constitution, Supreme Court precedents are being perverted in their desperation to try and slow Trump down. And don't be afraid. Don't cower in the corner. We need to stand up. You need to stand up and say, you know what? This is not about me. This is not even about Trump. This is a matter of we need to get to bang on the table in front of justices who can actually remedy these situations. So I applaud you, Michael, for raising that, and urge my fellow members of the bar to please join in whatever areas they feel there is injustice. And I'm going to land my plane.
There may be an example. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I just want to echo what Joe's saying and also give some legal support for the viewers who may not be understanding kind of what Michael was referring to. You know, as attorneys, we do have professional rules of conduct, but we also have a First Amendment right, just like any other citizen. You know, generally, we're required throughout the states, most of these professional rules of conduct are state-based, to have a respectful tone towards the judiciary and avoid statements that could undermine public confidence in the judicial system. But save that, we can say whatever we want, just like you can, to be able to criticize. And oftentimes we're in the unique position to have a little bit of experience, having done this before, having drafted jury instructions many, many times, to have kind of unique insight. So I fully believe what Joe's saying. And I say that, you know, and I hate to be, maybe it sounds like patriotism or something, but, you know, we are in a unique position as attorneys to be able to stand up and talk. We're in this age of, I think, of a battle between people who are trying to push everyone down. And whenever we rise up, they're going to sue us, they're going to cancel us, they're going to demonetize our YouTube channel. And we cannot let them do that. And just because I'm an attorney with some sort of professional conduct responsibility, I still have that First Amendment right. I have that unique experience, and I'd like to bring that out. And I think we all need to rise up and not be fearful of the rules of professional conduct or what someone's going to say.
I think there's an example possibly in the past, but you guys might want to look at Scientology. I know that sounds crazy, but Scientology, using essentially lawfare, managed to shut down the IRS and get their religious exemption by peppering them with lawsuits, individuals left and right. Like, why can you go after some of these people who are pushing this forward? I feel wrongly or illegally. What if they're sued in every single state? What if this is going on? You know, if all the lawyers start to just file left, right, legitimate cases, but just start filing where now they have to answer to that, would it possibly make them hesitant to just create novel law? I'm curious your thoughts, and I am speaking as a non-lawyer.
I mean, just to address it briefly, no. I mean, obviously, there's many protections in the system for frivolous lawsuits. We are allowed, obviously, if we're doing reasonable pleadings and there's facts that base the allegations on, we can continue to do that. But it's larger than just lawsuits that we're filing against gag orders. It's actually appearing online like this and doing our best to explain what we believe and what is true, what is the law. And so I just want to make sure that people understand. I'm going to continue to harp on this. You know, we need to speak out. We need to not be afraid, and not just lawyers, everyone. We need to come out and just say what we believe. And that's the marketplace of ideas that we envisioned. And so what a lot of this is symptomatic, this cultural, things have been happening these last 20 years that have continued to push the public voice down. For a period of time in 2015, 2004, it was all cancel culture. Obviously we can talk about things that were limitations that were put on the citizenry during the pandemic. There's been limitations on social media. We talked about it yesterday, Eric. Even X has a lot of limitations on what we can say in public. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that if we don't stand up and speak and maybe make some errors here and there, we're just going to be continue to push down into the boiling pot.
And I did want to say, I said legitimate, not frivolous. I definitely would not want, any legitimate claim that can be made, make it. But don't, obviously the frivolous would just backfire. And I think that would be a problem in of itself.
I just want to clarify, because Ian, I understand what you're saying and respect that. I was giving a comparison to where, Norm sits versus where I sit. And he and I are tasked every morning with trying to figure out what exactly the architecture is of the stream that we're building together. Norm, we get a lot of our viewers have been, I think, surprised lately about his push back toward what he would refer to as the center. And I think it's noble, but I think it's a pretty dynamic conversation and very difficult to define what the center is. But as it relates to lawyers and practitioners and the institution of the courts, I think that what I want, just to be clear, what I'm saying is that if lawyers en masse begin delegitimizing the process overall, right? Our judicial process overall. If civilians hear attorneys en masse speaking in a way that renders that institution devoid of legitimacy, right? Normal day-to-day garden variety deference, that institution crumbles. And Norm is of the belief, as am I, that our institutions are worth saving to the extent they can be saved, right? And to the extent we are lawyers, we definitely have our First Amendment right. We definitely appear on streams like this. But in terms of adapting to this sort of the lexicon of corruption and looking at things through this sort of purely political prism, and I don't mean to condescend to any of the viewers either. But what I'm saying is that there is a very pragmatic overtone to what Norm is saying, is that we are the warriors that go in and fight by means that are established by hundreds of years of investment into the Western ideals, right, in our current system of justice. And that means that if there is an ideological monolith dominating those institutions, that it's not that it can't be reversed, and that it's incumbent upon us as practitioners to confront that with our chest up, right, and out, and not be afraid to actually deploy those tools that we have been provided with as officers of the court, not merely to mirror or to appease those around us that are not licensed officers of the court, and to confirm perhaps pre-existing biases, or to confirm some sort of overriding pessimism and lack of faith in the system itself. It's up to us to actually go in there and fight in that arena. That's what I meant. And again, just to clarify that, I think it's a pretty noble mission. I think I called Norm based this morning because I had that revelation, while many of our viewers were really upset with the way that it feels like he's kind of pulling back from, I guess, observing what we would all see is the politically motivated nature and character of this. I think that what I just had this moment of insight where I got it. Something clicked with me, and I understood exactly why Norm takes these things at face value. And that's also why his clients love him, because he goes in there and he does not make them feel as though the deck is stacked. He's still going to pull his sword out and swing it appropriately, right?
Yeah, but his sword has some rough times. I mean, he's still skirting on the edge right now with his sword and personal risk that he's taken in the same system that he loves. So, there is a definite.
He's the only one on this stream that spent 5 years advocating for perhaps the most visible conspiracy theorist among us. Right?
And also January 6th. No question. I'm just pointing out that that there is a definite friction, and there has cost him personally. I have the utmost respect for him, but he also right now, I mean, just barely had a decision last week that is allowing him to fight another day, which is I'm thankful for. But that same system, he's I admire that he's supporting it, but he is also getting crushed by it.
Believe you me, we get after it in the mornings, and I told him the same thing. I said, there's a little bit of irony, a little bit of hypocrisy in a judge trying to basically ruin your life, take your life away, kill you, as I would see it, harm you and your family members and those and your colleagues, and even me to a certain indirect extent. And I see that, I see that for what it is. So point well made, Eric. I do think the only way out for us as practitioners is through. There is no eject button.
Okay. And I'm bringing this one back up because I know Ian mentioned before. I'm going to respectfully disagree here because you're talking about the mainstream media, Michael. Yep. Yes, they have overtaken it. However, I don't know if you know, it was probably 2 months ago or so that cable is now having fewer viewers than online media. So yes, I don't have that big of a channel here, but there's 2,700 people in here, over 2,700. If all these people are talking to their families, then now we've got that compounded to triple, maybe even 4 times that much. all of these channels that are here. Ian has at least one channel with over 100,000. Joe has a channel that's nearly 100,000. I have another channel that has over 100,000. By the way, folks, there's over 2,700 people in here. If you haven't subscribed to Joe, you could take him over the top right now.
There you go.
Literally today. So a channel with about 500, with 1,000. If you have channel after channel after channel after channel, this is a groundswell of a voice. Nate is in here with a channel of 450,000 plus.
Hey, we got 1,700 at Law Pod Daily. We could get over 2,000 a day if your viewers are feeling generous.
There you go.
Jump on in there. Definitely. Steve's got 10,000.
My thought is, in terms of what Michael's saying, is the institution shouldn't be destroyed or completely run down, but they need to be defended because, like any structure of power, they can be abused. And when we talked about at the beginning of it, that you've got a Supreme Court delivering 9-0 decisions, that's not an ideological divide, right? But some people, before you got the decision, they would go, oh, no, the liberal justices will always vote exactly against the other ones. But that's not always true. There is thinking that goes on. And here in the county that I live in North Carolina, we dodged a bullet for our local DA, and we have a good DA, and it's not the same party that I'm in, but she's a good DA. But if the primary had gone differently, that institution of fairness and reasonableness, that could be altered by who's occupying it. So how to fight? Well, one way to fight is for these elected positions is, of course, to vote wherever you are, change the social dynamic. You don't have to think everything's rotten. You can never win. Everything's totally against you. There will be there will be bad judges, bad lawyers, bad everything, because humans are that way. But the institutions are worth saving and worth defending.
How about recalls?
There are a lot of things that can be done. People, well, what can I do or whatever? Well, sometimes saving things is hard. Joe knows from what he's filed there for litigation. It's not easy work. When I did it during the virus thing in federal court, nobody's paying me to do it. So there's a lot of work involved in it in trying to balance things. But we have good federal judges in this state. We have good state court judges. We generally have good DAs. And that reflects a balance there. A lot of good work goes on here. But if all you listen to is the media, you think it's never anything ever except for which party initial is after your name. That's the only thing that matters. And that has not been my experience in the judicial system in this state.
And to also follow up on that chat that Hunley brought up earlier with respect to it's just online chatter and stuff like that. What I would point out is this is really a populist movement. And it feels very natural and organic that it's not these big behemoths who are fighting to fix the problem. It's countless smaller channels, smaller people who are, can effectively speak to, because it's a populist movement, meaning it's the great masses that are all coming together. So when you have great masses all coming together, it's healthier. It's actually more federalist to have pockets of people here, pockets of people there, pockets of people there, and to spur each other on, to push each other in accordance with each other, rather than just having this institutionalized CNN, mainstream media, ABC News, whatever it is. Rather than having these big behemoths, it actually feels more organic and more reflective of the fact that people are rising up specifically against these behemoth institutions.
Nate,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I think our job.
Hold on, let Nate get in there. I don't think it.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I definitely agree with Mike. I think, unfortunately, I feel like I am somewhat in the middle, and like even with this Trump thing, I honestly, I see why he got convicted, but I see why it's BS. And I think as much as people want to, everyone sees it from their own lens, right? We have this group, this amount of people who are saying this is BS and we're going to fight. But then you have the other half of the country who's out there screaming, "Yay, guilty, 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 guilty." So it's one of those things where I think if you're on the right, you think this is like some huge thing and all institutions are bad. If you're on the left, it's some great institution. But then if I flip it to, let's say, Black Lives Matter, then it's the exact opposite. They're saying the institutions are, we gotta throw them out, but then it's like, no, these institutions are good and we gotta save them. So I think the dynamics are always different. But and again, going back to the Trump recent conviction, it's wild because I was arguing with someone earlier about the facts of the case. Like, okay, here are the facts, and here are the admissions that were made, and so forth and so forth. And that person happened to be on the right, and that person literally, I showed them the tape of Trump and his attorneys admitting to the underlying facts, admitting to the underlying crimes, but they didn't admit to the felonies; they admitted to the misdemeanors. But he wouldn't accept that. But then on the other side, when I spoke to my liberal friend and I said, well, even though these felonies are BS, the Justice Department said these felony counts were BS because there was no election, this whole thing about him doing it on behalf of the election. And I showed him literally the argument, and he refused to accept it because it wasn't. So I think I don't think the institutions are bad. I think sometimes we want to overgeneralize bad precedent and say this is indicative of the whole thing. You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, it's a human system, and all human systems are flawed. But I think it is worth saving. It's worth defending because I honestly, and again, I'm a crazy American, but I think this is one of the best systems ever on the planet with all its flaws.
Yeah, where do we go now, Nate? What do we do? What's our next step?
But in terms of what? In terms of bad decisions happen. Right, bad decisions happen.
Well, okay, but so, not all bad decisions have the same weight. Let's be honest on that.
Of course, don't forget you had separate but equal. That was a bad decision, but it took time to overturn that. We've had some horrible Karamatsu, right? That was a horrible decision at the Supreme Court level. That had to be. We have, this happens. Unfortunately, yes, bad decisions happen that are horrible that change everyone's lives. But eventually, you have to kind of work through them. Dred Scott, my God, Dred Scott is the worst whatever. But you don't abolish the Supreme Court.
Can I ask you guys a little question that I don't know if any of you are going to know the answer to. I've seen a lot of the upside down flag that in the thumbnail here. Mm-hmm. And I actually was thinking that it's a great way of referencing the injustice that we saw yesterday come down in New York yesterday. And I'm wondering about that, like sort of evolving as being the symbol of the right now, of this populist movement, that the upside down flag. And my question is, I'm not familiar with regulations or codes or that relate to displaying of a flag. But
Steve can answer that. I was in the Army. Steve was in the Army, but
is there something illegal? Is there something illegal about displaying an upside down flag?
It's unenforceable.
No, it's
unenforceable. But it is saying that it's a state of emergency. My putting it on thumbnail that's my opinion, and I don't think there's anything they could do about that. That's my free speech. But that is what my intent is. And Steve, please address it because you probably know the military and the codes, flag codes as well.
Oh, I don't know. We always had it right side up when I was on base, baby. You needed to respect that flag.
That's what she said.
Yeah, they're all unenforceable to the public. You can burn a flag. It's all unenforceable.
What do you guys think about that?
The officers I had would enforce it. What do you guys enforceable to civilians, but in the Army, they'll enforce it, or they used to. I don't know about now.
What do you think about that becoming the new symbol of like populism, like in the wake of this amazingly dreadful decision in New York?
I think it's happening already organically.
I'm
saying I like my banana flag too.
Did anybody get a chance to look at the Justice Alito letter where he discussed his wife's flying of flags in those instances? I just thought that was interesting just to bring up.
I didn't see it. Can you explain? Like break it down?
Yeah. So what is it? Senators White House and Durbin had called for Justice Alito's recusal on the 2020 election cases, and for whatever reason, I think they were citing his wife having flown various flags on two separate occasions over his two different of his residences. One was his primary, one was his vacation home. And he actually published a letter addressing those two independent issues, and then telling everybody else to kick rocks, that he wasn't going to recuse himself.
What flags was he flying?
I'll pull them up, and the chat's probably going to be good.
No, but is he flying the U.S. flag somewhere?
No, it was his wife, and it was. Hold on, 1 second. Just give me a second.
Yeah, what was it was called an ascending to heaven flag, or the
the appeal to heaven.
Appeal to heaven, and the other one was the American flag upside down, which I put on my post-Trump conviction Crocs. There we go. This is I call it, this is the first day of ATC, the after Trump conviction. It's the new era of politics.
I always thought that sort of thing was disrespectful. Like when I see like flag underwears or like using it for your shoes. Like I
get
bothered by it.
No, I had the same reflex. It's like, okay, you love the flag, or you want to show that you love the flag, but you're literally using it to walk or walking on it. The sole is not a flag, so it's only on the top part.
All right.
Yeah, what's up?
I mean, the interesting thing about the flag issue as it relates to the Supreme Court, because we were just talking about justices, and my perspective on that is that I think Justice William Rehnquist is a great example of sort of the political arc and evolution over the course of a justice's life. He was appointed as a very conservative justice and retired from the bench, having moved significantly to the left from that position. So that's a great, Steve, thank you for bringing that up. But flags are symbolic speech, and so to impute symbolic speech of someone's spouse to absurd, but it does sort of highlight how highly scrutinized our Supreme Court is in this day and age. I mean, think about Clarence Thomas and how much he has had to actually withstand in the last 18 to 24 months, talking about his conflicts of interest. And what that speaks to, though, is that this is all connected in the sense that, it's no coincidence that now these cases are 3+ years old, but then they'll be coming onto, up for the next term. And all of a sudden we have Democrats in the Senate that are trying to again enliven the debate over the apparent partiality of those members of the highest court in our country, right? And their inability to,
Can I point out the obvious hypocrisy in this with them? I'll mention 3 flags: BLM, Pride, Ukraine, which they're flying like crazy. You could actually throw Israel in there too, whatever. It is very interesting that, they're going to be upset that they're flying these flags, or they're showing the American flag as an emergency. But some of these same people who are calling them out, though, will happily wear the Ukrainian pin or put up the Ukrainian flag over that, or the Pride flag or the BLM flag. So I think
even worse,
it's ridiculous.
I'm trying to find Judge Beryl Howell's speech. Judge Beryl Howell, who's like a sitting judge in D.C., giving a speech talking about the insurrectionists and these January 6ers. That's totally fine. That doesn't display any, prejudgment in pending cases. But flying a flag for whatever it means upside down, flying the flag upside down is a general act of disappointment. I don't know that it's
a distress signal, though.
I mean, yes, that is it. But they are distressed. I mean, literally, we're just talking about Joe feels distressed about this decision. I don't. It is not a disingenuous mockery. It's not a burning. It is saying we are distressed about what is happening in this country. I deliberately picked that flag upside down on this thumbnail.
And we also want other Americans to recognize that distress, recognize the gravity of what happened here, not to just go, this is just another Friday, but that we have to wake up. This is a serious change that happened now.
In context, it represents hostile occupation, right? It's a signal to all those that could potentially see it, that things are upside down.
Well, that is the case.
Right? Yeah, but are you guys really, because if I'm going to a judge, if I'm a cop who's just shot someone who happened to be a black person, and I'm going to in front of a judge who's been hanging a BLM flag, I'm going to ask for that judge to be recused, right? Because that obviously he's got an issue. I'd rather go to a judge who wasn't doing that. So the context, I think, really matters. If that judge had nothing to do with my case, then okay, whatever, free speech or white free speech. But if I'm going in front of that judge, I think it matters, right? That judge is supporting BLM, and I'm accused of doing something to a black man as a police officer. Yeah, I think it matters. So I don't know. If we can just say he can just put any flag up, but I do think context does matter in this case.
Well, and what is the context of that symbol in 2024, May 31st at 12:58 p.m. Eastern Time, 2024? Is it what it's been by historical standards, or is that some sort of common recognition by the electorate in the United States that this is a continuation of the campaign?
I'll give you another one for you, and then to push back on that. If a president dies, what do we do with the flag?
Half mast.
Half mast.
Yeah. Well, this is to me a similar type of situation.
But
in my opinion.
let me just interface here. What are we arguing? Are we arguing that there should be opinion about flying the upside down flag, or are we saying it's illegal or not? Because I think
it's not illegal.
Clear, it's not illegal, but you could have the opinion that it's disrespectful. Are we arguing now on if it's disrespectful or not? I mean, to me, it's very cut and dried when we talk illegally.
I mean, I've seen it for the last several years in various contexts. We even had a viewer on our stream send a picture. I believe he's a trucker, that he is, there's a shredded flag, a ripped flag that he flies from the back of his cab. And he does so intentionally. I believe he's also a veteran. And he's done that for quite some time, because that is his political position, is that it is a nation, in distress or under duress, right?
Wow, he's seen the America's Untold Story symbol. But yes, now
we change the colors of the flag all the time. Some people fly an American flag with black and white, and I mean it's free speech, as one of the commenters just said.
Well, now on a public building, a shredded flag is an actual no-go. But for private or whatever, yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, David.
No, nothing. I was going to say there was the case out of New York where the fire department, I think it was the fire department, were told they couldn't fly the flag to commemorate a fallen comrade or fallen firefighter with the blue stripe in it, because altered flags were against the protocol.
Or Denali Park, they said that you couldn't fly the flags because it was distracting to people.
So
it's just
I just messaged you the link to Justice Alito's letter if you wanted to bring that up.
Sure.
We don't have to. We get off the flag thing. I didn't mean to take us off.
I think I did it.
Who ducked out? Oh, Nate ducked out. Okay, I was like, what? All right.
There's the old joke about four old ladies playing bridge, and one goes oi, and the other one goes oi, and then the third one goes oi, and the fourth one goes, I thought we weren't discussing our kids today. This is like what politics has become. A bunch of people sitting around sighing at how outrageously insane politics has gotten, criminally insane.
All right, who wants to do the dramatic reading? I was going to say Steve, but I hear Joe has been putting on such magnificent performances that Matt Walsh of Daily Wire is using his material. So, Joe, why don't you lead us with dramatic reading?
Joe, I think read this with a theme of dry humor, because that's what I got from it. Just try it out.
I haven't read it yet, but I'll try on my first read to fulfill your request. Dear Senators Durbin and White House.
Lame. sorry, Joe.
This is
British. It's got to be British.
Cut.
Hello.
Like you got to go David Attenborough. Like, dear Senators Durbin and White House. White House. Oh, hold on. Somebody's name is White House?
Yes.
That man was born to be president. White House in the White House. Oh my goodness, the jokes write themselves. Okay, I'll shut my big mouth now. Joe, go.
If you ever heard him speak, you would know he's definitely not born to be president. Okay, he's terrible Senator White House.
So White House should be in the doghouse. Bada bing, bada boom.
Viva's stupid H, his pronounced H. Okay, dear Senators Durbin and White House, this is in response to your letter of May 23rd to the Chief Justice, requesting that he take steps to ensure that I recuse in Trump v. United States number 23-939 and any other cases related to the 2020 presidential election or the January 6th attack on the Capitol. As the court has pointed out, individual justices, rather than the court, decide recusal issues. I am therefore responding directly to your letter, and you can basically sit and wait for Roberts to basically do nothing. In it, you claim that two incidents involving the flying of flags created an appearance of impropriety that requires my recusal. The applicable provision of our Code of Conduct states as follows. Disqualification. 1, a justice is presumed impartial and has an obligation to sit unless disqualified. An obligation to sit unless disqualified. 2, a justice should disqualify himself or herself in a proceeding in which the justice's impartiality might reasonably be questioned. That is, where an unbiased and reasonable person who's aware of all relevant circumstances would doubt that the justice could fairly discharge his or her duties. Code of Conduct for Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States, Canon 3B1-2. The two incidents you cite do not meet the conditions for recusal set out in B2, and I therefore have an obligation to sit under B1. The first incident cited in your letter concerns the flying of an upside down.
Do I need to scroll? Sorry, I get distracted. Hold on, here we go.
Ooh, squirrels. The two incidents you cite, back down.
It's right there on the top. It's
no,
up there.
No, you went too far.
The first incident you cited in your letter concerns the flying of an upside down American flag.
No sentence.
It's on the top of the page.
And you maybe.
I don't like the fact that it sounds like he's throwing his wife under the bus a little bit.
Get into the actual letter, man.
My
The
wife
first
and
incident
I.
cited in your letter concerns the flying of an upside
This
down
is
American
boring.
flag
You're boring
outside
the
the House
viewers.
of Virginia, where my wife and I reside. In considering whether this event requires recusal, an unbiased and reasonable person would take into account the following facts. As I've stated publicly, I had nothing whatsoever to do with the flying of that flag. I was not even aware of the upside down flag until it was called to my attention. As soon as I saw it, I asked my wife to take it down, but for several days, she refused. My wife and I own our Virginia home jointly. She therefore has the legal right to use the property as she sees fit. And there were no additional steps that I could have taken to have the flag taken down more promptly.
The missus is firmly in control.
My wife's reasons for flying the flag are not relevant for present purposes, but I note that she was greatly distressed at the time due in large part to a very nasty neighborhood dispute in which I had no involvement. A house on the street displayed a sign attacking her personally, and a man who was living in the house at the time trailed her all the way down the street and berated her in my presence using foul language, including what I regard as the vilest epithet that can be addressed to a woman.
It was the C word. I bet it was, unless the neighbor's British, in which case he's playing hockey.
Oh, I thought it was insightful.
God,
my wife,
he's wordy.
My wife is a private citizen. She possesses the same First Amendment rights as every other American. She makes her own decisions. She's not like one of these people like you, like your women over there. She makes her own decisions, and I have always respected her right to do so. She's made many sacrifices to accommodate my service on the Supreme Court, including the insult of having to endure numerous loud, obscene, and personally insulting protests in front of our home that continue to this day and now threaten to escalate. I'm confident that a reasonable person who is not motivated by political or ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of Supreme Court cases would conclude that the events recounted above do not meet the applicable standard for recusal. I am therefore required to reject the request. The second incident concerns a flag bearing the legend "An Appeal to Heaven" that flew in the backyard of our vacation home in the summer 2023. I recall that my wife did fly that flag for some period of time, but I do not remember how long it flew. And what is most relevant here, I had no involvement in the decision to fly that flag. My wife is fond of flying flags. I'm not. My wife was solely responsible for having flagpoles put up in our residence and our vacation home and has flown a wide variety of flags over the years. In addition to the American flag, she has flown other patriotic flags, including a favorite flag thanking veterans, college flags, flags supporting sports teams, state and local flags, flags of nations from which the ancestors of family members came, flags of places we have visited, seasonal flags, and religious flags. I was not familiar with the Appeal to Heaven flag when my wife flew it. She may have mentioned that it dates back to the American Revolution, and I assumed she was flying it to express a religious and patriotic message. I was not aware of any connection between the historic flag and the Stop the Steal movement, and neither was my wife. She did not fly it to associate herself with that or any other group, and the use of an old historic flag by a new group does not necessarily drain that flag of all other meanings. As I said in reference to the other flag event, my wife is an independently minded private citizen.
This is too long.
Start respecting women. She makes her own decisions, and I honor her right to do so. Our vacation home was purchased with money she inherited from her parents and is titled in her
Oh my
name.
God.
It's a rest away from Washington where she should be able to relax. As a reasonable person, the reason he keeps saying a reasonable person is basically say you are ridiculously unreasonable. It's almost it's like Mark Anthony saying, when Mark Anthony repeatedly saying that these are what was the term that they used in Julius Caesar? They was referring to the other senators and mocking Brutus as being, I think, something like reasonable men or something like that. But a reasonable person who is not motivated by political ideological considerations or a desire to affect the outcome of Supreme Court cases would conclude that this event does not meet the applicable standard for recusal. I am therefore duty bound to tell you to go after yourself.
Duty. Well, she bought the house. Watch them like try to find some tax fraud issue in there now. Oh, she bought it with inheritance money and didn't declare it as an inter vivo. Okay, I'm joking.
By the way, Michael, you need to warn us next time that it's TLDR.
When you read that slow, I guess it's TLDR.
Oh.
I love
So,
you, Jeff.
look,
I love you, Jeff.
No, look, I understand that. Look, if you've been on social media for 10 seconds, then you assume that perhaps people will be able to keep up with a complicated letter that you're reading being read at,
it was boring and it almost protesteth too much. Yeah, she flew the flag. My wife and I are a single unit. Nothing wrong with it. Go F yourselves.
Why did he write it? Is the question, right? I mean, this is a justice on the highest, the highest court in the land. Right.
His wife wrote it.
that could be, or he might have been instructed to write it from powers that be at home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I assume the same.
You'll think she wrote it.
But see, basic thing is they're going to now get themselves into the position where they get to weaponize symbolism or symbols or symbology, and then say, now you got to recuse yourself because, oh, didn't you like a tweet? Or I don't know if the Supreme Court justices are on Twitter. Like it'll be recusal by association if they decide to weaponize any given term, or if they. Sorry.
No, I was going to say. By the way, you made me think of that. That actually may be a good feature coming to X. They're supposed to be removing the public like. So if somebody likes your tweet, it'll show a like, but it's not going to show who liked the tweet, which maybe will help people express themselves more if they're not worried of, oh God, somebody's going to go through my likes, or they'll go through tweet likes and go, Viva Fry, like this tweet, therefore, because I think a lot of people have opinions that they may be afraid to actually share, and that could be a way of getting more participation. I'm curious your thoughts. Sorry to hijack that, but
no, it's an interesting point. I when I like the white nationalist tweets, I mean, I do it knowing I'm throwing the system off, and I'm joking everybody. No, the liking a tweet is weird because like some of the the paralyzed Canadian woman who puts out a tweet, you don't want to like it even though you want to support it. So you retweet it. I think people like to support, and likes don't I don't think those qualify as endorsements either, the little heart, but I think that could be a good function.
Yeah, like this one said, Hitler liked this tweet. Do you?
Well, the best meme replies when someone says something amazingly intolerant, and then you have the little Hitler liked your tweet, which is fantastic. I'm still pissed off. Like it's like I'm irritated about everything, and I appreciate that. That means that I'm the problem today, and I'm cranky and I'm dismayed. But the old expression: if you like run into one bad driver before you get to work, it's their fault, and if you run into 5 bad drivers, then you're the problem. And I can appreciate. I'm in that cranky mood today, but this is
we might have climaxed before you joined. We were all equally.
Oh no, I was listening.
Getting sloppy seconds now.
Yeah.
Interesting choice.
Gross.
Look, you got the bananas in the background. You give me a feeling we go with it, right?
Well, I wasn't. They weren't, used as a prop. They're used as a symbol.
Bananas, man.
Can you just imagine?
We'll be a group therapy here, Viva. Unload on us. Tell us.
No. Well, first of all, there's the kids are all
peel it back for us.
Kids are out of school for the rest of the summer, so there's that. That's a first world problem. These are all first world problems, but they're very frustrating. Car issue, scheduling issue, and then you're wasting time, and then you have to be productive. You have to follow the news, and then you want to go live, but you can't really go live because you're torn in 5 different directions at once. And then you got kids who don't want to do things, and you got another kid who wants to do something. 3 kids. I don't know how many, 8 years apart. You cannot find something for everyone to do at the same time. Oh, and now we seem to be. America is the place where you need a car because you can't get anywhere without a car. So your car is indisposed for whatever the reason, and I scoot around, but you can't do groceries on a scooter. So on that note, and it's flipping hot. You get outside and it's too hot. It's humid, and I want to go fishing, but the water levels are too low. The ponds are too low because it hasn't rained enough, and everyone's going to blame that on climate change. Oh yeah, and then
complete show. I like
really,
it.
I'll get into that. Then you really start thinking cynically and dark and disgusting. If they wanted to have Biden not on the ballot in November, And there's only so many ways that can happen. And how about you want to provoke a stupid response that might beneficially be used to get Biden off the ballot? I can really think dark and cynically, and I don't even want to say the words, but I think everybody understands where I'm getting at. Provoke a wild base with wild lawfare, and then hope that someone does something bad as a reprisal to the opposite candidate that some people don't even want to see on the ballot. And how do you get him off the ballot in a sympathetic way that whoever you put in his place would be the sympathetic candidate, which even if you didn't like Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom, that would be there. This is how you stick it to the lunatics who did what they did in response to justice working its course. So I wrote out an entire Tom Clancy novel, or who's the other guy there that Barnes always talks about? He wrote... No. Oh, for goodness sake, who wrote The Constant Gardener?
I don't know.
Elroy.
L. Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron Hubbard. So anyways, so that's my dark thoughts. Like, if this is, and there's no depth to which they will not play dirty and use humans as tools, as they've done in the past.
Well, just to give an alternative to the theory, at least with respect to running Biden, if there's any opportunity to get rid of Biden, to me, I've seen this from a distance as sort of a big game of chicken, right? You've got on one end of the political spectrum, you've got Biden, who, for obvious reasons, is not a viable candidate, right? And we're not talking about like lawfare or any of that kind of stuff. We're just talking about physiologically not a viable candidate. And then on the other hand, you have the enemy of the state, as it were. And how do you ensure is sort of mutually assured destruction if they're both able to stay in? I mean, we get what we're getting right now. But if you're on the political left, that, no one wants to step into the ring to challenge Biden, because with Trump as the opponent, it's almost assured defeat. So no one wants to spend that political capital. This is just me sort of lobbing a theory. Nobody wants to spend that political capital down just to take a big fat L, right, in November.
I don't know if that's the case, Michael.
But imagine if they were to be able to replace Biden in a manner that would garner sympathy, so that whoever replaced him would have to get the vote as a matter of principle.
I'm getting to that. My theory, my working theory here is just simply that if the lawfare is efficacious, right, if it works, right, and define that how you want to in terms of what it looks like for the lawfare to work. But let's say, for example, that Trump is out of the picture for whatever reason, whether he's found guilty of a felony, et cetera, does that then give Democrats the room to actually get Biden out of the picture in a holistic way, not just sort of on a hey, let's find Kamala Harris or whatever? Is Trump as the opponent the real problem?
I came in, I was away for a minute, but I think that the debate being scheduled in June is a very important thing, because I think that's Biden's last chance. Like, you need to make something happen in the polls, or your ass is going to be replaced at the convention.
By the way, it was John Le Carre who I was thinking about when you talk about plots, about government plots. But Michael, I mean, even imagine this: it's a deep state false flag. They everybody knows they don't want Biden in there, and so you come out with this egregious, outrageous decision, which could ostensibly provoke a certain base, and then you can have your Fed surrection or your Fed sanation, and have them do it because they know that they got to get Biden out in a way that will garner sympathy and matters of principle for any replacement, however unpopular. It's like there's I
don't know. I kind of subscribe to the House of Cards theory. Because Tucker had Kevin Spacey on his show several months back, and that just was surreal to me. That sort of like that blend of fiction and real life was almost too much. But if this is a movie we're living through, and things are really well in hand, it would seem to me that the best option is option C, which is neither A or B. Right? Neither Biden or Trump, which means that perhaps we have the shortest run for a presidential election ever between two candidates that have yet to reveal themselves as the front runners for their respective parties. But that would pivot entirely on a conviction for Trump that would, render him ineligible by legal standards, and not the, challenging the Colorado Secretary of State legal standards, right? Or the Maine Secretary of State legal standards, but that would be, by felony conviction, incarceration, that kind of thing.
Well, that's what Haley was banking on. I mean, realistically, and most of the other candidates
At
were
least what she
banking on that.
campaigned on, right? I mean, that's how she raised a ton of money. That and
Well, that and staying in. I mean, she eventually got enough pressure. It was like, okay, you better just shut up and get out. But, you know, hey, I'm still here. And they all, I'm pretty sure, suspended their campaigns, and they didn't end their campaigns. So theoretically, they can always go, boop, you know what? I'm viable again. Hell, Ross Perot withdrew from the campaign. Remember? Do you guys remember this? Or you might be too young. I don't know. But he withdrew and he went back in, and he actually did cause serious damage. But all I'm saying is there's another guy out there right now who's been campaigning while not campaigning, and his name's Gavin Newsom. And I do think, and my show partner Mark thinks too, should Biden not perform well enough in the debate, or the numbers not move in any kind of positive direction, it's like, bye-bye, Joe. It's time for you to go. And if you don't, well, then bad things will start to happen. You know, Hunter will be convicted. We will look into
the problem with that theory is, how does Gavin bypass Kamala?
Because he can be nominated at the convention. They have something called superdelegates, David. See, the Republicans are trapped a bit more, but the Democrats, they've got it down. They have superdelegates, so they could just flat out say, yeah, here's the new guy.
Who's Geraldo Rivera in this crowd? Is it me?
Yeah.
Obscure destinations outdoors. Sorry, not watching. Just hear Geraldo Rivera. Who's supposed to be the Geraldo Rivera in this crowd?
I have no idea.
Yeah, is it Michael? Yeah, I don't think it's Michael.
I don't think it's Michael, but is it me?
It's Nate. He's a New Yorker. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm Geraldo.
I guess.
Yeah, Matt Taibbi, I think, just published something a few minutes ago.
The which still leads the polls? God, don't tell me Hillary.
Yeah, but Michael, I don't think there's any way to get him off the ballot, even with a felony conviction, unless it was the insurrection angle, which they're not going to get, because he could. It seems that it's me, Viva.
Well,
why is it the Jewish? Hold on. The Geraldo thing, is it because I look like him? Is it because I say stupid things, or is it because he's half Jewish? Like, which if it's the physical appearance, I don't mind. If it's based on the substance of what I'm saying, then I mind, because I don't put much stock into what Geraldo Rivera says. But no, Michael, there would be, even with a felony conviction, even if he's in jail, there's no way to get him off the ballot. You just mean from a popularity perspective?
Yeah, look, at a certain point, we have to go vote, right? And so, to the extent, and that's why I preface that by saying, pick your poison with respect to, I guess, convincing that the lawfare has. Is that, you see Rosie back there? Pick your poison with respect to what you think the lawfare working means, right? You know, is it this cumulative effort? At a certain point, you know, he's not even he hasn't been campaigning at all. This has been his campaign, right?
It's been effective,
right? I think so too. Personally, I think that this is again only further just to use the pun, hardened his base around him, and it's probably brought more into the coalition. But I don't know that this isn't. I don't know that the Democrats necessarily thought through second, third order effects of convicting him for this case in particular. I think it was one in the stack of cases that were brought against him. But the reaction to this has been really terrible. But I do wonder whether there is some sort of move yet to be made, or I just imagine that there is a scenario in which neither of Biden or Trump are available, and whether that's legal or otherwise, it's just that's the thought exercise for me. Ian, you're like trying to hold something back over there.
No, I'm just so sorry. I do not mean to disrupt you. I really am. It's just the comments are just so freaking hilarious. I really should mute myself, but just look at them about Viva. It's making me laugh. And by the way, the whole audience wants your own show, Michael. They're saying, listen, we just want to listen to you, not Ian or David or Eric.
Well, Law Pod Daily, there's a link in the description, and everybody subscribe.
Oh, Michael, Law Pod Daily is with Norm Pattis.
Yes.
For goodness sake. Well, now I put the name and everything together. Yes, I just had Norm on a few weeks ago.
It was a great interview. It was a great interview.
Oh, it's amazing.
We're trying to get it over 2,000 subscribers today. So if you guys could go hit that subscribe button.
There you go. Get on it. And get on Joe's.
No, I've seen. I've watched the show too. Lord Pordelli is really good. I've watched. Matter of fact, that's the first time I met you guys. I remember I was in your live chat. So no, it's a good show.
Eric, bring up that thing that I sent you, that link. This is what the big news that seems to have been hidden yesterday was, or at least distracted from what the headlines. The real big news, like the big news that might bring the world, 1 inch closer to World War III, or at least 1 inch from World War III. And that was the U.S. authorizing Ukraine to strike with U.S. weaponry within Russia, which I thought was another one of the red lines that they said they would never violate.
Of course, before I do, though, I'm going to bring up, because we were talking about comments, not just in our comments or chat, but on X, because this is going on X's too right away. Just look at yourselves, Eric. MAGAs revel in sentencing sometimes innocent people to death, but claim the system is broken when a white-collar billionaire crook faces a possible 6 to 12 months in jail. Which one of you has reveled in an innocent person being sentenced to death? Please help me out. I want to know.
It's Scott Adams loser think, where you're having discussions with your own machinations and your own audible hallucinations, or yourself. Okay, I'll say that they said something they never said, so that I can rebut it, and that's how social media interactions go.
Straw man.
No, I won't. Well, but a straw man would be characterizing the position. This is literally just putting words in your mouth and having an argument with yourself. No, I'm actually taken aback by the amount of people on the criminal justice reform left, and people who, based on their avatars or Twitter profiles, seem to be minorities, now reveling in a criminal justice system gone absolutely awry and being weaponized because they don't like the target. It's like it seems that there's a lot of people, especially the biggest of the hypocrites, who actually want this type of injustice. They just want it against the targets that they want, and they complain about the injustice when it's against targets that they like.
I hate to keep bringing this up, but this is literally the same argument. If you go back to the Summer of Love, this is the same argument they were making. The system is bad, it's corrupt, blah, 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 blah. All these cops are getting off, and now, so and we live in an imperfect system. I unfortunately, again, like I keep saying, there are bad decisions, and I think this Trump decision is a bad decision, but I don't think it's so bad where the whole thing's gonna fall off. I think it's just bad because it all depends on your political persuasion. We all are in here living in a particular bubble, but if you go watch the left, that bubble is cheering like they've just won the Super Bowl.
It fits into the history of the capital L left and the capital D Democrats. It's
Nate, if I can, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, David. Don't worry, I apologize for that. Yeah, but it's not just that it's a bad decision; it's that it's a bad decision that was very clearly motivated for bad reasons. That's what makes it corruption. That's what makes it uniquely terrible. That we know that it's patently clear that there was bad motivations here, terrible motivations, and then they don't merely have bad motivations, but they're willing to engage in purposefully creating bad decisions, setting up scenarios where you're basically creating a jury that they're practically nullifying in jury instructions unless they convict. That's the level that we're at here, where it's basically this jury. People might be mad at this jury. I'll say right now, you read the jury instructions, it's almost impossible to not convict them. And that's part of the appealable error.
Joe, did you get
the weaponization, which is so terrible and so dangerous and so unique to this situation?
Did you get written jury, or were there written jury instructions? I thought he only gave them orally, and he did not give the jury instructions to the jury.
Yeah, they have to give them.
Right. It was written jury instructions, and he said, "I will read this to you as often as you want, but you can't take a copy of the written instructions with you to deliberation."
Okay, so hold on. So he read them to them. They got to see them, but they did not get to have them in deliberation.
I don't think they see them. They hear it orally. They don't read it along with him.
Yeah.
The way it normally is done is that
it's 55 pages. So remember these 55 pages.
Well, it's pretty short, man. I think Norm was sending me notes earlier today. He's working a murder trial. 87 pages of jury instructions.
And they take it with them?
No.
Do they never take it with them as a matter of criminal law practice?
My experience is that, especially in California, of course you can. Not only are they displayed
it depends on the jurisdiction. It depends on the jurisdiction. It depends on the jurisdiction.
And they're late.
Hold on. Nate was a prosecutor in New York. Nate, did you allow juries to take instructions with them in New York?
I don't believe so. I know the last, but you're talking about what 10 years ago. So, and I did a misdemeanor trial, and they didn't take him back. But it wasn't really that long. Though. It wasn't, it was kind of like here it is. So, but I remember seeing people. They did take some back though, because they would give them the package. But again, it might be
federal courts fine to take them back.
But I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it just seems weird to say, especially the more complex, like you just mentioned, 87 pages. I would feel that that's abusive, that I can't go to refer to the damn instructions. They're instructions. Why can't I look at the instructions while I'm back there?
You can't even look at and you can never look at the transcripts. You can't look at the transcripts.
Okay, but the instructions on what do you do, it seems completely reasonable.
Ridiculous. It seems ridiculous that you cannot keep taking with you. It's like those are, because if you think about it, it's basically the game, the instructions for the game. Imagine so someone tells you the rules of a game, and it's like, no, you can't.
This is your job.
Yeah.
Okay, give me my job description. Because that's.
Let me just, because so there's usually a jury form that they have that goes back there. So for instance, guilty, you check the box, and it kind of lays out like, do you believe blah blah blah. So there should be a form that the jury gets that they should check the box, and if they checked all the guilty or not guilty, then you should be able to see that and the way it's worded. So I know they get that, but I'm not.
Ruby is saying that defense has to consent to it in New York, otherwise no.
Yeah, that may be true.
I don't know.
I remember most of the cases that I've seen. They've always gotten them. I don't know. This would be one of the ones I don't remember them getting them.
Nate and I were having a back and forth on text message earlier today about whether or not this is a bad decision or whether or not this is a communist frame job. And I'm of the opinion this is a communist level frame job with your political actors who bastardized the law for the charges, because otherwise this is barred by the statute of limitations because it's originally, if anything, a misdemeanor. Everyone involved is a politically motivated partisan player, from the prosecutor to the judge to the witnesses, and it's not a perversion of justice. It's beyond that. This is the type of thing that, beyond show me the person, I'll find you the crime. It's we'll do whatever. We'll make up a crime if we don't like you. Period. And there's no way of justifying this. The judge's instructions were absolutely insane by all accounts. It seems that the only attorneys who support this as some form of legitimate justice are political operatives themselves. Mark Elias, who's the other one there? Lawrence Tribe. And yeah, who was saying it earlier? I was listening, that it'll go to the Supreme Court. If it does, get shut down 9-0 very quietly. It'll throw some people off for a bit. But in the meantime, they're gonna milk this, and they're gonna use it to provoke something.
Yeah, Dersh doesn't think it's going to go to the Supreme Court.
No,
he's saying they probably won't see it.
Yeah, they're not going to see this unless yeah.
Unless the Court of Appeal does not overturn the conviction.
No, he said he doesn't think they will. He literally, in his response, said that he can't see the New York courts overturning it, and the Supreme Court's only going to see maybe 2% of any cases, and he doesn't see them picking it up.
Well, okay, rephrase that a touch. If depending on the Supreme Court's immunity decision, you might have an automatic impact on this decision, on this conviction.
Well, one thing I just saw, my position on this is clear, because everybody's gonna be like, Nate hates Trump, blah blah blah. My position, I want to be very very clear. I do think this conviction is bull, no doubt about it. I do believe they stretched it to felonies, just like he was saying. I agree with that 100%. But I do think Trump and his team did not help themselves by essentially admitting to the underlying offense. There was, in this case, this is a falsifying business records case. Giuliani's come out, Trump came out and essentially admitted to the falsification of business records, to the whole scheme of paying Cohen, to all of that. But the only issue.
When did they admit that?
I'll send. I'm going to send Eric.
Send the video, because I watched the same video.
I'll send Eric the
what
two
you're
videos.
Talking about. He's saying he paid his lawyer. He's saying I paid my lawyer $400,000, the same as he had the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. So I don't understand.
Well, you watch the video, and then
I didn't see the video. I'd like to see this video.
You'll see the video, and I will not poison the pool with my interpretation of the video. But Nate's wrong.
But of course, your statement right now, I will not poison the pool, is literally poisoning the pool.
That's a joke. But
yes.
Because you'll hear it. I'll tell you how I hear it and how I'd argue.
I don't want to jump in that pool because I don't know what Viva's been doing in that pool. So
careful. Yeah, careful when you swim. Where are you sending it, Nate? Text or DM or what?
Oh, I could send it.
Yeah, somebody send it.
Well, and that was so the process as the punishment theme is also, I think, Viva, what you were just referencing. So, on our stream, there's one viewer that he and I have kind of been chiseling away at this phrase of judicial authentication of false narratives through the courts, right? As sort of the underlying strategy of so using pleadings, in other words, right? This think about the Colorado case against Trump, right, where the NGO sues the Colorado Secretary of State, and they incorporate by reference the entirety of the January 6th Select Committee published report, right, and then they try to use that to authenticate the fact that he's an insurrectionist, right, at law, and then use that as a legal conclusion to remove him from the ballot. I think that what needs to be reformed, if there's any room for us to kind of talk about what should be reformed, is necessarily that the appellate system is very slow. Right. So these initial hurdles that have to be, I guess, left over in the trial court level, whatever. I'm not sure that there's a whole lot that could be done. But, the fact that these cases take so long, so many resources, and then the redress comes on appeal is a real big issue. Right. Because this reveals that the process itself can be punishment irrespective of whether there was underlying merit in the initial action, right?
Okay. I've got the video.
I texted you too, Eric, but start with one. Okay, let's hear this.
Trump, in a series of Thursday morning tweets, changing his story about the $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels, saying now that the non-disclosure agreement drawn up by his longtime personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, was aimed at stopping the adult film actress from making, quote, false and extortionist accusations about an affair. That contradicts previous claims made by
No,
Trump,
it doesn't.
including a flat denial he knew about the payment.
No, it doesn't contradict that. They cannot stop editorializing.
Hold on, let it did not use presidential campaign funds to pay Daniels, saying, quote, money from the campaign or campaign contributions played no role in this transaction. That claim comes after Rudy Giuliani, now a member of Trump's legal team, said in an interview with Fox News' Sean Hannity that Trump reimbursed Cohen for the payment made to Daniels before the 2016 election in exchange for her silence, but that it did not violate campaign finance laws because it was not drawn from Trump campaign funds.
Having something to do with paying some Stormy Daniels woman.
I don't know why I don't hear him.
I mean, which is going to turn out to be.
Whoever put this together forgot his voice track.
No.
Daniels has sued Trump and not reimbursed by Trump of his own pocket.
Oh, you know what? By the way, I just want to point out something that I just saw. I can't believe it. Fox News copyright claimed Daily Mail. I will bet you $100 on that, because you notice how we couldn't hear any sound there?
No, I heard
I could hear it. I could hear it. I could hear it. You did played it because the Giuliani thing is was what the important part.
But I didn't hear any sound out of Giuliani.
We heard it.
We all heard it.
Yeah, you didn't hear it.
Well, that's weird. I don't know why it went away from me.
That money was not campaign money.
We don't see it now.
I'm giving you a fact now.
That money was not campaign money.
It's not.
Yeah. Go rewind that a little bit, Eric.
Okay, because I don't know why I literally.
I don't understand how anyone even interprets this.
It did not violate campaign finance laws because it was not drawn from Trump campaign funds.
Having something to do with paying some Stormy Daniels woman $130,000. I mean, which is going to turn out to be perfectly legal. That money was not campaign money. Sorry, I'm giving you a fact now that you don't know. It's not campaign money. No,
it's not campaign money, he says.
Campaign finance violation.
No campaign finance violation.
They funneled it through the law firm.
So they funneled it through a law firm.
And the president repaid it.
Cohen paid Daniels, whose real name is.
It's amazing. I don't hear it either, Joe. And
I don't understand. I don't understand. Nate, walk me through. Where is there an admission that he knew that Mike Cohen is doing this?
Well, and I'll stop you there.
Or
he didn't sign the NDA.
Where is the admission?
So well, did you guys play the whole clip? Because he goes on and says that he paid Cohen back even a little bit extra, so Cohen didn't so to take care of the taxes for those payments, and that this was even.
We didn't get to that part. When you listen to the full clip, he says that he actually I'm not sure. Is this the? Go ahead.
I'll keep playing it.
Eric, play the first link I sent you.
This is the first link
because it's the full thing with Giuliani's on, and he admits to the whole scheme.
Okay, hold on.
No, he doesn't.
Two things. This is the first link you sent me. Number two, I literally did not hear the entire Giuliani thing, but I hear everything else in this video. I've never had that happen before in StreamYard.
Oh, well, it might be on your end. It might have been mono, and it might be playing on only one speaker, and you might not be having that speaker work, but we all hear it.
Well, I have headphones.
No, but it might have been recorded in mono. I'm just trying to think.
In mono, yeah.
But Paul, so go to the Trump part, because I still disagree with Nate.
Mm-hmm.
There, where is it?
Well, I don't know. I'm just going to hit play because we're
not reimbursed by Trump. Daniels has sued Trump and Cohen to be released from the non-disclosure agreement, saying it was invalid because Trump never signed it. She has also sued Trump for defamation. Meanwhile, Cohen is under criminal investigation. Both he and the federal government have indicated some documents seized in an FBI raid of his home, office, and hotel room last month relate to the hush money payment at the heart of the lawsuit with Daniels. Cohen last week.
I'll try this other video.
Did you know about the payments? Later on, I knew. Later on, but you have to understand, Nancy.
Okay.
This is him talking directly.
Yeah. Okay, let's hear this.
Hold on. This is Trump.
Did you know about the payments?
Later on, I knew. Later on, but you have to understand, Ainsley, what he did, and they weren't taken out of campaign finance. That's a big thing. That's a much bigger thing. Did they come out of the campaign? They didn't come out of the campaign. They came from me, and I tweeted about it. I don't know if you know, but I tweeted about the payments, but they didn't come out of campaign. In fact, my first question when I heard about it was, did they come out of the campaign? Because that could be a little dicey, and they didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation.
Okay.
People say
so just to put this all in perspective, what he was charged with, which was a misdemeanor, which would just generally get you just a fine, this is a falsifying business records or documents case, right? So in other words, each check and each payment or an explanation on why the payment occurred is a violation if you falsify that. Now, in this particular instance, the check that Michael Cohen was repaid $130,000 for legal service, but that's what they put on the books. But the payments were actually to reimburse Cohen for payments to Stormy Daniels. That would be the misdemeanor, right? Hey, you're telling us this is really for legal services, but it's not. It's actually to reimburse you for Stormy Daniels. That's a misdemeanor. But the way the government, now that misdemeanor would generally not be good now because the statute of limitations ran out on a misdemeanor. And number two, it will only get you a fine.
Nate.
So what the government did in this case was say, well, those payments to Cohen for Stormy Daniels wasn't just as the normal course of doing business. What it was for was to help Trump get elected as a campaign violation. And he should have reported it in the overall sense of the campaign. So that is what elevated to a felony, even though the Elections Commission, the Federal Election Commission, said it wasn't a violation. So the admission that he did reimburse Cohen for the payment to Stormy Daniels, and it wasn't just legal services, that is the falsifying business.
That's not what he says, though.
That's not what he said.
That's not what he says.
He said he paid them back.
He said after the fact, later.
Exactly. After the fact, later, yes.
No,
even
but
after the fact, later, that's still the violation of law. It
had already been, if it had already been paid and entered, and he finds out about it later, he didn't falsify anything at the time, and Michael Cohen's explanation doesn't make sense. If he finds out a year later, it's like, what the hell was that for? Oh, that went to Stormy. Oh, well, when we entered it in the books, it was because we were paying your retainer agreement, Michael Cohen. But now trust us that Michael Cohen says, well, he directed me to do this at the time. He said later. And then he's trying to say later, it didn't even come out of the campaign finance. So whatever the hell it was.
It's not coming out of campaign finance. Go ahead, you're right. It's not coming out of the campaign.
But he's saying later.
Their argument.
No, but he's saying later which necessarily would imply he didn't know it happened at the time. And Michael Cohen, the fixer, is just doing his business and getting paid.
I want to ask you a question, Nate.
Go ahead.
Nate, let me ask you a question. Okay?
I'm listening.
Michael Cohen said over and over again that he served as Trump's personal attorney for his first year that he was in office in 2017. How much compensation did he get for that?
But he says he didn't do any work.
Here's the point. No. First of all, he admitted that he did some work, and that he also was an independent consultant for other people. He literally charged over $1 million to some of the other companies for his consultation for like 6 phone calls. I went through the cross-examination of Michael Cohen. If you listen to Michael Cohen's testimony and you believe this verdict and all what the prosecution wants you to believe, you have to believe that the money that he paid, that he said was for legal services, was not at all for legal services. Michael Cohen claims that he laid out $130,000 for Stormy Daniels, another $50,000 that he admits he lied to the Trump campaign. That he only gave 20. He claimed to the Trump campaign that he gave 50. So that's combined that he's advancing $180,000. They said, we'll double that and give you a bonus of another $60,000. So that it happens to work out that we're giving you your normal annual amount of $420,000, implying we're not paying. That $420,000 is basically we're paying you back. So now the question is this: if he's working for him for a year, and all the money he's getting is just money that he's owed, what the hell was he paid for that year? Why is he paid nothing? Do you think Michael Cohen worked for free for a year? Does that make any sense to anyone? Does anyone who's actually looking at this reasonably think to themselves, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that he was on Books and Record and taking care of things for Melania and for different Trump children and a couple of other incidents, and he got paid literally $0. Does anyone actually think that's what...
So hold on. What you're saying is unreasonable because nobody's saying he got paid $0, right?
No, he is saying...
Hold on. Let me finish because you just...
He's saying he didn't do any work.
We're saying, if you guys are, I understand. I'm saying things that are going against the narrative, but let me at least get
and the facts. All
right. Now you see the facts, right? So again, I understand it's hard to admit, but they have said that they are repaying Cohen, not for his legal services, but for Stormy Daniels. Now Trump is saying he did it after the fact or whatever, but they have admitted to that fact, and on top of that, they have also admitted that this was a common business practice. This is what they were doing all the time. They admitted that this was a common business practice. And if Eric or one of you guys, because I don't have I don't have that internet access, if you guys look at the full interview with Giuliani and at Giuliani interview, he actually says that. He says that yes, this was a common business practice. And in the trial, Trump's team's defense was this was not for the campaign because this is something we always did. And everyone will remember when they said
catch the kill order.
We did not want his wife to find out about this thing. So as much as I understand, it's like, okay, we want to try to figure out every way we can not acknowledge that, but the Trump team has specifically said this was their commonplace in business. So I don't understand.
No. Testimony. Nate, I went through that testimony. I went through it line by line. Okay, this is unintentionally. I don't believe you're doing this intentionally. But
so when Giuliani says that, that's insane.
Giuliani says he's not on the stand.
Okay.
He never came into this trial.
Giuliani testified at all.
I care about what came out of this trial.
That's what I
care about.
Well, and Joe, let me ask you this question because I don't believe that video of Giuliani was admitted as evidence.
It wasn't.
No. I'm saying what they have admitted to. They have admitted to this was their scheme. This was what they were doing. Were they not paying women?
Yes.
Were they not paying women to do that?
Oh my God! First of all, they didn't pay every woman. They specifically said he didn't pay everyone, and Michael Cohen said he didn't pay everyone.
You see, that's dishonest. I didn't say they paid everyone. They were paying women. They were paying women, right? Yes. So don't say they were paying every woman because you're being dishonest and trying to make it seem like I'm saying something I didn't say. They were paying women.
Hold on.
They were paying women, right? Yes. So let's not say every woman. Let's not say every woman that's dishonest. I said they were paying women and
No. Nate,
hold on.
This is disingenuous because you're taking two completely different legal theories that he's presenting. I am saying everyone because you're implying that he must have paid Stormy Daniels. And what I point to you is this: you're taking two completely different legal theories that he's explaining as to why he should not be held accountable, glomming them together into some sort of magical amorphous type of thing. And this is the same type of Frankenstein as to what's happening here, which makes absolutely no sense at all.
Okay, explain it then.
I'm not. No.
Explain it, Joe.
No.
Explain it. Explain it. Explain it then. Instead of just saying these crazy things, explain it.
Two different legal bases as to why it is.
Okay.
Two different legal bases as to why it is that he should not be held accountable. Number one is that he's saying it's got nothing to do with the election because I've been paying people for the last 30 years, and sometimes I pay and sometimes I don't pay. So if you assume that this was payment, it's got nothing to do with the election because that's what I've been doing to maintain my PR for the last 4 decades. That's what I've been doing. That's one thing.
We agree. All right, so just on that point, we agree. 100%.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now,
point two.
Second, the point two is that when Michael Cohen is advancing money, it doesn't mean that we don't know that he's agreed to pay this particular one because he does pay some women, but doesn't pay every woman. So we don't know that he agreed to pay Stormy Daniels. So how do we know? How do we even know that he agreed to pay Stormy Daniels? How do we know that he was fine with it? How do we know that when this whole thing went down that he was fine with it? Did they have a catch and kill system to try and get women to sign NDAs? Yes. Did they use that for every woman? No. Did he want to use it for Stormy Daniels? I don't know. The only person who tells us that it is that's why he did it is basically Michael Cohen coming along here, alleged perjurer, admitted perjurer, Michael Cohen coming in here, basically saying that I worked in 2017 and all the monies I got in 2017 while working as personal attorney for Donald Trump, every penny I got paid there was not for my legal services of the work I was providing in 2017, but it was all just some repayment of monies I advanced back in 2016. Who actually believes that this guy who's so self-serving, who's so self-interested, who is so desperate when he had Robert Costello coming in there, terrified that he's going to go to jail for life, and he's like, what's my escape route? What's my escape route? And Robert Costello says, they're coming after Trump. If they're coming after Trump and you're able to give him up, tell me anything illegal that he can do, and we will get you off by the end of the week. And he's like, I've got nothing. And then all of a sudden he comes up here now and he says, oh, there was this whole catch and kill and there was this election thing and that he didn't admit it as election payments. And that also implies that all the work I did in 2017, all the monies I got paying in 2017, none of them were for the work I was doing in 2017. That's just payments that he decided to give me to repay me. And I've never come suing Donald. Why didn't he come suing Donald Trump for the monies he was owed for the work he did in 2017? You think he let that go altogether? That's what you have to believe if you think that this jury got this decision correct.
No, Joe.
I know nothing about Mike Cohen, and I basically assumed that all of a sudden he was just this generous person to Mike Cohen. I hate him so much, but I've never sued him to go after the monies I was owed for the legal services that I provided in 2017.
Let me rebut that, Joe. What you've done is you've put a beautiful spin on the facts and made sure to leave out specific facts that would hurt your case.
Tell me which ones.
For instance, like David Pecker. David Pecker, who did testify and said, yes, this was an ongoing scheme for this, right? Catch and kill deals, right? We pay money to catch these stories and kill it and blah, blah, blah. And then we get paid back in this reimbursement type way. And that reimbursement scheme, right, was labeled on their records, not as payments for this, but as payments for something else. That's the falsifying business records. But again, I understand that hurts the argument, so we should just ignore that testimony from David Pecker. Hold on. Let me finish, because I'm let you rant. But then we had the other people who also testified to these ongoing schemes. And remember with your point one, we had all these ongoing schemes to do this, to these catch and kill deals. But the thing that you, for some reason, don't want to just accept is that the scheme that you admitted, and that's why I said I agree with your first point, because the scheme that you admitted to in point one is the violation of the law. So all this part two is these excuses, but the scheme itself for catch and kill and repayment and not putting them properly as a business record is the violation. So you've admitted to the violation, but then now you're talking about the defenses to the violation. But your defenses, hold on, let me finish this last point. Let me finish this last point. Even your conclusions in point two are to the election piece which I agree with. I agree the case is bullshit. I agree this shouldn't have been brought to trial, and I agree the election piece is nonsense. Right? This should not have even gone here. This should have been statute of limitations out. But the election piece is where the argument is. It is not with the business records being falsified, which you admitted to in point one. So you're right. If let's just to put a bow on this, I agree with you. The business records were falsified in part one, but in part two, the election stuff, everything you're saying is true. How do you know what's this? How do you know what's for the election? You're 100% right in that. But if you admit to your first point, you've admitted to the falsification of business records.
And here's the problem. Because even if he had falsified records in other situations in 1990 or in 2000 or in 2005, the fact that we don't know that he approved this for Stormy Daniels, and we know that he didn't pay every woman off, means we do not know that he approved this and that this was a falsification, that these records were falsified. That's the point. If you want to tell me that the catch and kill scheme, which is perfectly legal, and there are thousands of people across the country who engage in this sort of thing to protect their image non-politically and politically, if you're going to tell me that that's the case, in that case you have to basically say, okay, which is the time that he did it here? And I'll tell you that we don't know that he did it with Stormy Daniels. And if we do believe he did it with Stormy Daniels, in that case, we have to believe that Michael Cohen was totally fine with not getting paid a penny for his legal services that he provided in 2017. That to me is an unreasonable conclusion. That guy was fine with that.
Joe, what you just made the argument is that yes, people do this all the time. Just like speeding. Everyone speeds, but not everybody gets caught for speeding. Right? So I agree with you. Everybody speeds, but everybody gets caught. Hold on, let me finish. Okay. Everybody speeds, but not everybody gets caught for speeding. In this particular case, if you are admitting that there was a catch and kill scheme and that they were repaying it for, the only way you get up, you get.
I don't admit that. I don't admit that.
But if there was a catch and kill scheme, as everyone testified to, for the past since the 90s, right?
A scheme, catch and kill. First of all, I don't. The word scheme, I think, is.
Right, was there a catch and kill? Was there a catch and kill?
What I'm saying is, if he has a standard operating procedure of catch and kill, okay. If that's what it is, does that mean it? Do you think that was employed with every person who set forward a claim?
No, I don't believe that. Okay. No,
stop. Fine. So if it's not employed with every person that brought forward a claim, how do we know it was employed with respect to Stormy Daniels specifically?
I don't know. Only reason.
That's the problem. Hold on.
But let me just make it very clear. There's 34 counts. So what I'll do is I'll say Stormy Daniels. I'll remove the Stormy Daniels count. So now, what about the other 33 counts of the schemes that I don't want to say schemes of the catch and kill situation? That the only way you could rectify this catch and kill situation is if they properly notated it on the business records, which would be a misdemeanor.
I'm going to stop you.
They did not.
Benefit.
So I'll remove the Stormy Daniels.
Stop for 1 second.
Go ahead.
I'm going to save you. I'm going to save you from yourself. Go
ahead. Save me.
Okay.
Save me.
All 34 of these charges relate to that one payment to Stormy Daniels. All 34 of them.
No.
Because
no.
Okay.
Karen McDougal.
Listen to me. You're wrong. Look at the charges. Look at the charges.
I'm looking at the indictment. Let's pull up the indictment.
I looked at the indictment yesterday. I'll tell you exactly what it says.
Okay, maybe if you're right.
It says what happens is when Michael Cohen submitted an invoice, that is a falsification. That's a falsification. When they record it in their ledger, that's a falsification. When they cut a check, that's a third falsification.
Yeah.
And they have that for each month. For the 11 months that he got paid off, and then there was one. They added a fourth one in the first month that was paid off. I don't remember exactly how they came to that, but that's had 33 times 3, and they were all for the $180,000 that he advanced. That's what Mike Cohen testified for the $50,000 to Finch, which was partially BS. He admitted on the stand, and for the $130,000 that had nothing at all to do with any payments that were purportedly advanced for Karen McDougal. So that's all 34 of these. All 30. That's what I'm trying to save you from yourself. That all 34 of these convictions relate to that purported one loan that Michael Cohen purportedly gave with Donald Trump's consent to Stormy Daniels. So, all right, it all comes down to
if that's the case, then Joe is 110% correct.
Thank you.
If that
this is resolution.
No. I'm somebody who I don't care about the spin.
That's why I argue with you, because I know.
If what Joe is saying is correct, if all 35, because when I read the initial indictment, it listed Karen McDougal, it listed the doorman, it listed a whole bunch of other people. And I read through the whole thing, and I think I read through it on my thing. But if you're saying they changed that and they only went with this with the Stormy Daniels, then what Joe is saying,
you'll see it.
Then what Joe is saying is 100% correct. I am 100% wrong, because I was under the impression of the original indictment that they were different, that it was all these different schemes. So if that's the case,
it's 34, and they all relate to the.
Hold on. If that is the case, I will gladly give up my ignorance and say Joe is correct, and I was 100% wrong with this particular situation.
I want to know something. You're a freaking remarkable man. That you're that.
But this is what we do, right? If you tell me some facts that I thought I knew, and I was like, hey, because I read the indictment, I read it online. But if you said they changed it up, and I wasn't aware of that, then you're 100% correct.
If you read the jury charge, if you read through the jury charges, he goes through them one by one. He goes month by month, and he says, and in June and June 30th, 2017, that June 28, 17, that Mike Cohen submitted a bill, and June 30th it was recorded in their thing. June 30th, the check was that. So June, I
did see the recordings, but if you're saying they're all related to the one Stormy Daniels thing,
every one of them.
Everything I said before this arguing was totally in ignorance, because I thought they were all for the different ones. Again, from when I read it. So Joe, again, everybody who's listening to this, Joe is, if what Joe's saying, I haven't confirmed it, but I believe what Joe is saying is correct. He is correct. I am absolutely wrong. And this is even worse of a tragedy than I thought it was. So I can see the point, 100%.
I want to shift to this before we head out, because I think this is an ultimate sign of what's really going on. Watch what this guy does. This guy who has had his opponent successfully convicted.
Mr. President, can you tell us, sir, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir? Do you think the conviction will have an impact on the campaign? We'd love to hear your thoughts, sir.
Should he be on the ballot, sir?
How do you like that expression there, folks?
Creepy.
How do you like that? Creepy Uncle Joe is having the best day ever. And we're down to just a couple people here. I'm going through his last super chats. I want to wrap it up. Nate, what do you have going on? What's coming up?
Nothing. Just as you guys see, I don't have any internet. So other than arguing with Joe about the finer details of this particular case and losing my ass off, but I got some more videos coming up. It's funny because I'm going to do some more research into this and probably do a video up. But now with Joe's new information, my whole perspective on this thing has 100% changed. And it's funny because this is one thing I do love about coming to this particular show and shows like this, is that you come in and you're like, okay, this is what I know about it. And then when someone provides you some additional facts that you say, okay, these facts I think you have to be able to acknowledge them and change your perspective based on the facts. I'm someone who personally, I don't like being proven wrong, but when it does, it helps me grow as a person. So I appreciate this conversation, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to do deeper research. So what I have going on is I have some other things that I'm going to be looking into, and hopefully you guys like the videos that I got coming up forward.
All right, and you can get a little clip from this video and redirect people over to push me over 100,000 in your video. That would be
seriously, guys. We got 3,000 people here watching. Let's at least get Joe to 99,000. I'm sure many of you are already subscribed, but I'm being serious. I'm so proud when people leave the show and subscribe to different people, and we help other channels. It's happened. LawPod Daily, help monetize them, put them over the top. MLS, help put them over the top. Chandler Remington, put them over the top. All of you guys are so great, and it's such an honor that I have folks like this here. You can even subscribe to this channel that you're watching right now. Of course, I deeply appreciate it, but seriously, go. I mean, Joe really needs to get over 100K. I think it's time. And everybody, please consider doing that. And Joe, tell us what's going on. I'm not going to cut you off, so don't filibuster.
I'm not going to filibuster. I'll tell you right now. As you all have heard, the gag on Trump is still in existence. I'm fighting Judge Merchan in court. I just got a dispositive decision by the First Department saying that they're not going to grant my petition under Article 78 to overturn that gag order. I'm going on to the Court of Appeals, and my lawyer expects that we're going to be making an application to the Supreme Court and filing for writ of certiorari to try and get the DC Circuit Court decision, which really flips standard law, well-accepted law for the last 200 years on its head as to the power of the court and the opportunity of the court to gag criminal defendants in ways that are horrifying for a typical American. And I'm urging you to help support that. It's at givesendgo.com/ungag Trump. There are links to documents that have been filed. We're going to the Court of Appeals. I don't expect to succeed in the Court of Appeals, but after that, this is exactly the type of case that the Supreme Court loves to weigh in on, specifically cases regarding free speech, and where there's a circuit split, because the DC Circuit Court is basically saying the court has an interest in the fair administration of justice that justifies a gag, and the Sixth Circuit has implicitly said there is no such thing. And deciding a free speech issue where there's a split decision between the DC Circuit Court and the Sixth Circuit is exactly the sort of area that the Supreme Court loves to weigh in on. So we're confident that we're and expecting and hopeful that we will succeed in getting a writ of certiorari, and that we will have the opportunity to argue this in front of the Supreme Court and hopefully get them to recognize that a DC Circuit holding is completely incorrect. You can find me at goodlogic.locals.com, which is where you find out that I'm here. And if you can help push me up to 100,000 on YouTube or subscribe to me on Rumble, I'd be most obliged. And I love hanging out with you guys. And Nate, people have heard me say 1,000 times, I'd much rather argue with someone and try and find a search for truth. And especially when I'm arguing with someone who has the bravery and character that they could be like, wow, okay, you're right. And I hold you in such high admiration that I can't even begin to express it.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. Listen, this is what we do. If you can't acknowledge something is, I can sit here and try to pretend that I'm right, but that's stupid. It doesn't help anybody grow. And don't get me wrong, I learned something today. So, and I think that's the most powerful thing. And I think it helps because and I don't even want to really hate bringing this up, but even now with everybody being blocked on Twitter because they just
damn it, I thought we got through this thing without that.
No, but I'm saying, but this is what really this is about, right? That's what really this is about. We argue very vigorously about this thing, but at the end of the day, Joe said, no, listen, this is what it really was, and it was like, oh, you know what? I agree with you. If that's it. So, and that's what it should always be, and that's what people should come here for, to see us argue vigorously, and if the facts are what they are, we'll come to the right conclusion. So,
on that note, everybody, thank you so